Okay, this is part of a series on joining clauses together in a sentence. Previously, we just touched upon sentences with only one clause, but sentences can have 2 or 3 or 4 or more clauses. They're probably bad sentences if they have 4 or more clauses, but who am I to judge? You're going to encounter these in literature naturally. We looked at, first of all, compound clauses. Compound clauses join together 2 independent clauses that can be sentences in their own right without being sentence fragments. But we want to move ahead and look at complex sentences. What is a complex sentence? Answer? Let's find out. What is a complex sentence? Well, a complex sentence joins at least one independent clause and at least one dependent clause. That is, it joins a complete thought with what would otherwise be a sentence fragment. Compound sentences join together 2 clauses which could have been sentences in their own right. A complex sentence joins together at least one complete thought or independent clause with at least one dependent clause. Or, to say it another way, it joins one complete thought with an incomplete thought. Let's have a look. Examples, yes. Which I have always disliked. Oh, immediately we're thinking, what does this which refer to? We don't know what which is, and therefore we can easily ascertain or feel in our bones that this is an incomplete thought. And yet it has a subject, I, and a verb. The dependent clause has a subject and a verb, but is missing that complete thought. All right. Who smells bad? Ooh, who? Who? This is another relative pronoun which is referring to something else which isn't included. Which is a relative pronoun which is pointing to something else. Who is a relative pronoun pointing to something else. So if a clause begins with a relative pronoun, then we know that it must be a dependent clause or a relative clause. Another one, that I met last Tuesday. Again, that is pointing to something. That is a relative pronoun. And a clause that begins with a relative pronoun is always a subordinate clause, or it's always a dependent clause. We know in our bones without an ounce of grammar, as it were, that it's not complete. Something's missing. We don't know what that is. Anyway, so how do we join the two? Well, we're going to look at one way to join a complete thought to an incomplete thought, or join an incomplete thought, should I say, to a complete thought. We're going to look at relative pronoun. So relative pronoun, as we saw before, can be which or who or that, for example. Right. But what does it do? A pronoun always refers back to its antecedent. A pronoun always refers back to its antecedent. So it's an incomplete thought if you have the pronoun, in this case the relative pronoun, but no antecedent. It points back to something which isn't there. That won't do. All right, the girl that I loved is gone. How do we diagram this? Well, first of all, let's note that we have one clause, one clause, the girl is gone. That's one, but slap bang in the middle of it, that I loved, is another clause that is dependent. With the word that, it points back to something. It points back to what? What does it point to? What is the antecedent of that? The answer is girl. The girl that I loved. All right, another one. The boss who fired me has been fired. Again, we have the same pattern repeated. We have a complete thought. The boss has been fired. Right. Okay. Slap bang in the middle, we have a clause which begins with a relative pronoun who. That relative pronoun points back to something. To whom does the relative pronoun who point back? Boss, the boss. All right, one more. The orange t-shirt, which was my favorite, is ruined. Again, the same pattern. A complete or independent clause. The orange t-shirt is ruined, which is split down the middle by a dependent clause starting with a relative pronoun, which relative pronoun is a fancy word, but let's just say that it's a pronoun which relates back to an antecedent, something along those lines. Which, what does which refer to? The orange t-shirt, of course. Which was my favorite? Which begins with a relative pronoun. It has a subject, which, and a verb. All right, but yet it's an incomplete thought. How do we diagram that? Well, let's have a look at some examples. Boom. The girl that I loved is gone. First of all, let's split them into two clauses. The girl is gone. Fine. And then let's identify the relative pronoun. That could be who or that or which. That I loved. This is our second dependent clause. So we're going to diagram in the order in which they appear. Okay, baseline. Girl is gone. Who is gone? Answer, girl is gone. Good. It's the first sentence, and I think we can do... Now, how do we change things around? Originally, it was that I loved. But if we ask the question, who loved? We get the answer, I. And the subject must precede in order the verb loved. Who loved? I loved. So we put the subject where the subject ought to be. I loved what? What received that love? Answer, that. But how do we relate the two clauses? The independent clause, girl is gone, with that. Answer, with a simple dotted line, a vertical dotted line, from one to the other. By the way, which girl? Answer, the girl. There we have it. A little bit involved, but not impossible. We diagram the independent clause to the dependent clause via a relative pronoun, such as who or that or which, via a vertical dotted line between the relative pronoun and its antecedent. Very good. Let's have a look at another example. The boss who fired me has been fired. Okay, let's have a look how to diagram this. Boss has been fired. Baseline. Who fired me? Baseline. Who has been fired? Answer, boss. Who fired me? Answer, who. Haha. How do we join the relative pronoun to its antecedent? Via a vertical dash line. No need to write anything on the line. Which boss? The boss. The boss has been fired. Who fired me? At a glance, we can see not only the subject and the predicate, but also two distinct clauses. We can see how they're related. They're related via a relative pronoun, who. The other relative pronouns include that and which. We can see the modifiers. Let's finish the work. Has been fired. Has been, well, they're both one part of one verb. All right, it's a be verb. It's a linking verb. It's an equals verb. So we diagram that accordingly. And that's our subject complement. Subject, verb, subject complement. Who fired me? Fire. Who equals me? Now, I'm not my own boss. No. Fired is therefore an action verb. So we diagram that accordingly. Who fired what? Who fired me? Me is our direct object. So there we have it. At a glance, boom, we can see very clearly how the different elements are related to one another. Last one. The orange t-shirt, comma, which was my favorite, comma, is ruined. Two clauses. One, independent. The orange t-shirt is ruined. Independent clause. We're going to start with that since it's the first in order. We're going to follow with which was my favorite. Let's have a look at how to do this. First of all, let's diagram both sentences. Baseline. Baseline. What is ruined? Answer, t-shirt is ruined. Which was favorite? Answer, which. Just ask the questions and have confidence. All right. How do we relate the antecedent to the relative pronoun which? Via a vertical dash line. Which t-shirt is ruined? Answer, the t-shirt is ruined. What kind of a verb is? It's a to be verb, so we diagram that accordingly. Ruined is a predicate adjective. It's also a subject complement. T-shirt is ruined, all at a glance. Which was favorite? Was. What kind of a verb is was? It's a conjugation of the verb to be, which equals favorite. It's an equals verb or a linking verb. We diagram that accordingly. Favorite, it's another predicate adjective, or what's the other name? Subject complement. Beautiful. So there we have it. We can see at a glance the structure of each of the clauses and how the two clauses are related. Oh, we're missing a modifier. Whose favorite? my favorite. The t-shirt, which was my favorite, is ruined. Yeah, that's it. Okay, your turn to do the exercises. I hope you do well. I hope you enjoy it. I'll see you in the next lesson. Thanks for watching. This video was part of a course that normally costs $29.99 at udemy.com. But click the link below and you get the course for only $9.99, a 66% saving. The course has all the exercises you need to master basic sentence diagramming and sentence grammar. So, click now for lifetime access with a 30-day money-back guarantee.